Hello, and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. I am just going to dive right into today's lesson. Every single day on the Knowing Show, we go live. And for the most part, over the last couple of weeks, I have not done this every single day. But for the most part, we've been reading every single day a lesson from A Course in Miracles. And we are on lesson 175 today, as it is the 175th day of the year. And we are in the middle of a review section. And so I'm going to just jump into we're reviewing two lessons, but we're going to dive deeper into one. So lesson 177 is a review of lesson 159, I give the miracles I have received, and lesson 160, I am at home, fear is the stranger here. And that's what we're going to review today. I am at home, fear is the stranger here. Fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Identify with fear, and you will be a stranger to yourself. And thus you are unknown to you. What is yourself remains an alien to the part of you which thinks that it is real, but different from yourself. What could be sane in such a circumstance? Who but a madman could believe he is what he is not, and judge against himself? There is a stranger in our midst who comes from an idea so foreign to the truth he speaks a different language, looks upon a world truth does not know, and understands what truth regards as senseless. Stranger yet, he does not recognize to whom he comes, and yet maintains his home belongs to him, while he is alien now, who is at home. And yet, how easy it would be to say, this is my home. Here I belong, and I will not leave because a madman says I must. What reason is there for not saying this? What could the reason be except that you had asked this stranger to take your place and let you be a stranger to yourself? No one would let himself be disposed so needlessly unless he thought there were another home more suited for his tastes. Who is the stranger? Is it fear, or you who are unsuited to the home which God provided for his Son? Is fear his own, created in his likeness? Is it fear that love completes and is completed by? There is no home can there is no home can shelter love and fear. They cannot coexist. If you are real, then fear must be an illusion. And if fear is real, then you do not exist at all. How simply then the question is resolved. Who fears has but denied himself and said, I am the stranger here. And so I leave my home to one more like me than myself and give him all I thought belonged to me. Now is he exiled of necessity, and not knowing who he is, uncertain of all things but this, that he is not himself, and that his home has been denied to him. What does he search for now? What can he find? A stranger to himself can find no home wherever he may look, for he has made return impossible. His way is lost, except a miracle will search him out and show him that he is no stranger now. The miracle will come, for in his home his self remains. It asked no stranger in, and took no alien thought to be its own. And it will call its own unto itself in recognition of what is its own. Who is the stranger? Is he not the one yourself calls not? You are unable now to recognize this stranger in your mind, in your midst, for you have given him your rightful place. Yet it is yourself, as certain of its own as God is of his Son. He cannot be confused about creation. He is sure of what belongs to him. No stranger can be interposed between his knowledge and his Son's reality. He does not know of strangers. He is certain of his Son. God's certainty suffices. Whom he knows to be his Son belongs where he has set his Son forever. He has answered you who ask, who is the stranger? Hear his voice assure you, and quietly ensure that you are not a stranger to your Father, nor is your Creator stranger made to you. Whom God has joined remain forever one, at home in him and no stranger to himself. Today we offer thanks to Christ who come to search the world for what belongs to him. His vision sees no strangers, but beholds his own and joyously unites with them. They see him as a stranger, for they do not recognize themselves. Yet as they give him welcome, they remember, and he leads them gently home again where they belong. Not one does Christ forget. Not one he fails to give you to remember, that your home may be complete and perfect as it was established. He has not forgotten you, but you will not remember him until you look on all as he does. Who denies his brother is denying him, and thus refusing to accept the gift of sight by which his self is clearly recognized, his home remembered, and salvation come. I want to take a little detour tonight. I feel kind of compelled to talk about love as I was reading this just now with you. Y'all, I just had this thought, a couple of times. It says fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Identify with fear and you will be a stranger to yourself. Just kind of employing very simple if then logical statements. So fear is a stranger to the ways of love. So if fear is a stranger to love, then this sentiment of identify with fear and you will be a stranger to yourself. So if fear cannot coexist with love, then if you are to identify with fear and be a stranger to yourself, then you must be made with and in love. So there's this kind of association play here where if fear is a stranger of love and you are to identify with fear, you will be a stranger of yourself, then this presupposes that you are made in and through love. And so if we recognize this and actually holding off any kind of attack on this sentiment and holding off disbelief for a moment and believing that this could very well be true, then what that means is that at our core, when we think about who we truly are, it has to be intertwined with love if we're made in and through it. So then to identify with fear and make fear something that we are holding on to, something that we are kind of entangling ourselves with or even tethering ourselves to, then we are fundamentally looking away from our identity and moving towards something that is not us. And so if we are to remember who we are, what that means is actually turning away from fear and moving toward love if we are made in and through love. So to therefore fixate on love and to pursue love is to actually pursue and remember who we were created to be in the first place. And so there's just these different kind of word plays and association here where it says, I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. That's the lesson for today. So if we are made in and through love, and fear and love cannot coexist, anytime we are feeling or experiencing fear, we are effectively being threatened and pulled away from our source of life. We are being pulled away from our source of the truth of who we are. And, there's something here over the last couple of days, we've been kind of building on this premise around defensiveness. If we are operating in defensiveness, we are actually fundamentally proclaiming ourselves as weak. Whereas in defenselessness, we actually find our power because we're moving from a fragile foundation and a fragile home, effectively, that's built on the sand of fear, and moving to the rock and the foundation of love, which is to ultimately look at the world through God's eyes. And so anytime fear comes in, it's threatening us to move away from our identity and move away from this sure and solid foundation upon which we stand. That is the security and strength of knowing who we are and whose we are. And at the end of the day, why we are. Why are we here? Why am I why am I called to this life? What is my intention and my purpose? And so for us to really be able to walk in the fullness of that, we have to be so clear on, okay, what does it look like for me to exist in this place of love? And then what does fear sound like? What does fear look like? What does it feel like? And so if we're clear on love and we're clear on fear, then we can identify, okay, this is what it looks like, feels like, sounds like when I'm walking in my identity. And this is what it looks like, sounds like, feels like when I'm moving out of it. I love this concept of vertical alignment because it means that we are clear on the kind of those three questions of who we are, whose we are, why we are, predicated on love. And then when we start looking and moving outside of that, we kind of start looking to the right and to the left, and we start moving horizontal. And we look laterally to the right and to the left, and we start wondering, okay, well, what's their perception? How am I measuring up against them? And then fear really starts coming in. I actually don't know if fear can exist apart from comparison, apart from other people. If we're existing kind of in this zone. Yesterday, I read one of my favorite quotes by Theodore Roosevelt about the man in the arena. If we are existing in our own arena, there's really nothing to fear because we are simply contending against us. We're going up in the arena. It's you versus you, me against me. There's no one else there. So what is there to fear? There's no external opinion, no external circumstance or environment, expectation. So can fear actually exist simply on its own? And there's something else around fear that's interesting. I was hosting a knowing retreat. Gosh, this must have been 2 years ago. I was hosting a knowing retreat in the mountains of West Virginia. It was absolutely beautiful. And we had this kind of revelation or realization, I guess is a better way to say it, around fear, where fear is always future. It's always looking ahead and saying, I'm afraid that this will happen. Because if you're here in this moment, here in the present, well, I know I'm experiencing it right now. So there's nothing to be afraid of, because even if it's horrifying, well, I'm not afraid of it because it's happening right now. And maybe it's devastating. Maybe it's horrible, but I'm not afraid of it because I'm actually experiencing right now. Fear is only ever in the future. So if we are to live in the present moment, live in love, then fear fundamentally cannot exist in the present moment, and fear cannot coexist with love. And so if we are to hold this sentiment to be true, fear is a stranger to the ways of love. Therefore, identify with fear and you will be a stranger to yourself. Predicates the fact that you are made in and through love. And so if we are to believe that, then we have to know there's so much wisdom in understanding what does fear look like, sound like, feel like. And each one of us is going to have a very, very different answer to that based on our experiences. And the reason why this is so important is because so often the past is the thing we're projecting forward. And that's what we're afraid of. We can't be afraid of something we don't know. We're imagining something. We've experienced something in the past and we're usually anticipating something that will be worse than that, or we're projecting it forward. But we're not afraid of something we don't know. And so often, if we're feeling fear, it's because we are fundamentally playing out something that lives in our imagination or something that lives in our past. And so when we are looking ahead and feeling fear, it really, really, I think, forces a question for us to look in the mirror and say, what has been unresolved from my past? And am I actually making something up because it's living in my imagination? There was a phrase that I heard back in August of last year, 2025, that it felt like it set me free. It was the phrase, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And the reason why this brought so much freedom to me is because, man, we have the power to control our minds. We really, really do. We have the power to control our thoughts. And so if I don't want to live in fear, I have the power to stop thinking about that, to move my attention elsewhere, to take that thought that is driving me crazy, that's taking me down a pathway of fear, projecting the past or projecting imagination onto the future. I have the entire 100% power to move my attention elsewhere. Just simply move it. And thus, my energy goes in a different direction. Y'all, the power to control our mind and to control our thoughts is probably one of the most underrated skill sets that we can possess as an individual. And then think about it. Raising children, like the way that you lead your team. I've been in a lot of conversations lately in a business perspective, but also in a personal perspective, but it's been surprisingly extensive on a business front, where I've been working with executive teams. And the more that they are placing their attention and thus their energy on matters that are really upsetting, that infiltrates into the entire culture of the business. And it's like that corrupts from the inside. And then that extends outward. And I had a call with someone just the other day where it was, and I'm so grateful. They were so humble and so open. We were talking about the need for leadership to evolve as the company grows. Being a leader of a $500,000 business, that's awesome. That's a high calling. But to be a leader of what's now becoming a $50 million organization, well, that requires a level of maturity and like almost like growing up, like leaving, like this analogy of like leaving behind the childish ways of doing business at a $500,000 valuation. Like this is small business and it's still a responsibility, but man, do you have to mature to be able to lead a $50 million business, much less so a $500 million business. And so the question is, if we have big dreams and we have a big vision. Yesterday, Theodore Roosevelt, we were reading his speech, and he challenged us to be one who holds great ideals. If we hold great ideals for ourselves, for our businesses, for our community, for our family, we actually need to be allowing it and enabling ourselves to evolve along with those great ideals, because there is no way we will be able to fulfill on that great vision while being less so in our own personal standards of the way that we show up. Y'all, we cannot achieve great vision and great ideals with fear in the driver's seat. So this lesson today, I am at home. Fear is the stranger here. This concept of I am at home actually really, really is perhaps maybe the thing that we need to camp out on for the rest of this time together is, where do you feel safe? Do you actually feel safe in your own skin, in your own body, in your own past? Like, are you at peace with the past? Are you at peace in how you were raised? Are you at peace with the experiences that have led you to today? Yesterday, I was at the World Cup, and it was the most, like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was in Houston, Portugal versus Uzbekistan, and it was electrifying. That's the right word. And, we were sitting in a row, and there was this little boy. He was probably 5 years old. And I don't think I've ever seen a kid, much more so an adult, that confident. Like, he was screaming at the top of his lungs, telling Ronaldo to do things, get to work and score the ball. And it was so funny. And at the same time, this kid clearly feels safe. I'm watching both parents on either side of him. And he clearly feels safe in that environment. And the more safe we feel in our nucleus, the more safe we feel in the physical environments in which we continue to kind of move throughout the world. But if we don't feel safe in our own home, there is no way that we're going to feel safe in other external environments. So this question of I am at home, fear is the stranger here. Y'all, what feels more at home, fear in the driver's seat or love in the driver's seat? Because again, if this concept, fear is the stranger to the ways of love, and it is predicated on the fact, identify with fear and you will be a stranger to yourself. It's predicated on the fact that we are created in and through love. And if we believe that, then therefore, when we start feeling fear creep in, that means our identity is creeping out. And so if we want to walk in the fullness of our identity and the power that comes with us walking and living in alignment, then the second we start to to feel and sense. That's why it's important for us to know what fear feels like, sounds like, and what does it actually look like in terms of our mind and our thoughts. The second we start sensing that, man, that means that's a warning sign we're losing our identity. It's time to get our identity back in the driver's seat, to get love back in control, because that is the foundation upon which we stand. If indeed, that is predicated on the belief system that we are created in and through love. So in and through love, if that is our identity, then fear has no place. But we need to know what it feels like, sounds like, looks like, in order to identify when is it really creeping up and when is it starting to kind of take the driver's seat. Just jumping back here in the chat. Oh my gosh, Dub Styles. I just saw your comment here. This is so beautiful. So powerful too. No home, no safe place, no love. Yet I only fear not living up to what the Creator needs me to accomplish. And I fear love because I lose everything I love. Man, there's so much like vulnerability in what you said, my friend. It's interesting, I'm reminded, as you say that, Dub Styles, I'm reminded of Michelangelo has this quote that effectively the most devastating thing in life is not that we aim for something and then maybe we don't achieve it, but the fact is that maybe we actually do achieve it. That's the most terrifying thing, is that we actually live our life and achieve it, because what that means is that we weren't aiming high enough. And so I hear what you're saying. It's actually perhaps more so not necessarily like, oh, I'm looking for something safe in my life, but really I'm looking to fulfill on this destiny, on this fire inside me that I know it's like God-given. Like I was born with this passion. It's so funny. I remember being 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I would go sit out in our willow tree out front in the house. And I just felt like there was there was this depth that I did not know how to access inside of me. And it was so frustrating. And I had no idea how to get to it. And y'all, there is something inside of all of us that I really believe if we were to sit long enough with it, we would kind of start to realize like, oh, there's a rhythm there, an anthem there that perhaps even is that kind of, I was on a call with someone today where we were talking about like that heart song, that very thing, like the heartbeat, where it's like, oh, I've had this inside of me since I was 3 years old, 2 years old, since I can remember. And it has not gone away. A desire for something, a even kind of like a wanting or a longing. And I think we shouldn't silence that. I think actually this is the time to pay attention, to lean in, to be curious and like give space and time to listen. But we're not going to be able to do that if we don't feel safe. I go back to that little kid at the World Cup yesterday who was screaming. He was little enough that he could actually scream. And I was like, oh my God, it was so loud. And it was so inspiring listening to this little kid just like blood curdle scream to Ronaldo to get more goals. And so if we feel safe in our nucleus, whether that's kind of our physical home or with a close friend, wherever is your nucleus and in your kind of, I guess, kind of insular environment, right? If you're, I'm thinking about this, I know so many people where they're like, I did this right out of high school. I lived in someone's house and I had a bedroom in their home. That was my like little nucleus, my little corner of the world. Maybe you're married and you've got kids. So like your home is kind of your nucleus. But y'all, if we don't feel safe wherever those rooms are, the ability to create and kind of fulfill on that heart song, it diminishes incrementally with the degree of lack of safety that we feel. That's where on the Knowing Show, we talk about the cultivation of the intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligences. There is a level of health and unhealth in each one of these categories. And so to the degree that we feel safe to then explore and heal and cultivate to move from unhealth to health, the more we're going to be able to explore the very thing that we were created to do in the first place, that requires the employment and deployment of each one of these intelligences. I'm just jumping back here in the chat. Chair Machine, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Morphus, hello. Gojo's, Then Boss, Josh Lamb. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you're here. Don't cry. But I love you. I'm so glad you're here. Me Palo. Just scrolling down. Brian, I'm so glad to see you. John, hello. Mill Adams, Mark, Carl, Maya, hello. Robert, good to see you. Tadasha, hello. Carl, Robert, Lake, Munchie, good evening. Pepper, Marky, thank you guys. Thank you for joining. It's funny seeing just all these comments. Brian says Robert needs to go. Yeah, this has been interesting catching up on the chats, y'all. Thank you for those of you who have been engaging with real intention. Thank you. And for those of you who have been, trolling, I'm glad you're here. You're here for a reason. So whether that's to perfect me and help all of us who are here for something meaningful to be derived. We're all helping each other out, right? But I'm so glad for us to be able to join together tonight. It was funny. I had a thought tonight, and I ran it by my best friend, and I said, "What do you think about just not going live tonight?" So I've been going live every day since a year ago, yesterday, and I was like, maybe I'll just take a day off and just my 1 anniversary day off. And, it was interesting. I started going live a year ago today, and part of it was to keep my word to myself. Can I do this thing and keep my commitment and go live every single day? And y'all, I think that this question, where is your safe place? Can we feel safe with our own self? Yes, can we feel safe in our nucleus? But do I actually trust my own word? Do I feel safe with me? Can I look in the mirror and like who I see? Can I look at a picture of me and love that person? And I'm not talking about the kind of self-love that's really popular these days, where it's like, don't work out and kind of be lazy, or using self-love as an excuse to abdicate responsibility. That is not what we're talking about here. What we are talking about is being able to face off with reality and extend compassion, because we know where we came from and we know where we're going, and we cannot get to where we're going. We cannot fulfill on the vision and the reason why we're here in the first place if we are not employing and deploying every single one of these intelligences within us, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical. If we don't feel safe to be able to practice and fail and try again and go into the arena, like Theodore Roosevelt talks about in his speech from 1914 in Paris. So for us to feel safe, yes, do we feel safe with our nucleus? But at the end of the day, alone in our beds, naked and alone, can we feel safe in that environment? And no one else can answer that but you. And that's perhaps one of the most important questions, because apart from feeling safe, not only can we not fulfill on the very reason why we're here, but there's no way that we can create or innovate or bring something new and bring about an ingenuity to the world around us. So with that, y'all, thank you so much for joining. Robert, I'm glad you're here. He says, life is hard. Life is so hard. And, I'm thinking about, I'm actually, just as you say that, Robert, he says, life is hard. My sister, she was 26 years old and had a 3-week-old baby girl when her husband was killed. And life is really brutal. And so can we find safety and solace and peace and respite for the soul that is crushed within our own self, and ideally with our creator? Can we find respite there? Or will we be outsourcing our meaning and our purpose to everyone and everything around us, looking to the right and to the left, trying to find purpose and meaning? Or can we find it within that kind of peaceful, quiet place of the soul with our Creator? So, y'all, thank you so much for joining. Brian, love you, my friend. Chair Machine, thank you so much for joining. Be Lame, Mill Adams, thank you guys. I'm so glad you joined, and I'm so glad we went live tonight. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good night. Bye.